This is Real News Media TV, coverage you can trust. Please like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates. Good morning, my Real News Media TV family. Thank you so much for tuning in this morning, and I'm wishing for everyone a wonderful and a productive day. And in the news this morning for May 24, 2023, alleged top-tier Arnett Gardens gangster arrested in Cassava Peace. An alleged top-tier gangster from Arnett Gardens in St. Andrew was arrested in the Cassava Peace section of the parish on Tuesday. It is understood that about 5 p.m., the man was traveling in a motorcar along with a female companion when the vehicle was stopped by members of the St. Andrew North Police. A search was conducted by the lawmen and an illegal firearm was found. The man and the woman were both taken into custody and are expected to be charged. Antoinette Cardenas to be buried June 17 in St. Mary. The late former Firebrand talk show host and attorney-at-law Antoinette Cardenas will be laid to rest on Saturday, June 17 at the St. Cyprian Church in Highgate, St. Mary. A Thanksgiving service was held for her on May 16 in Philadelphia, United States, where she had spent her days in exile. A small gathering of friends and family attended the service where her son, Cheek, spoke fondly of her. The remains of the controversial St. Mary native will be interred in the Houghton family plot in the community of Martin. Houghton Cardenas was the only daughter of the late Ken Houghton, former politician and the president of the All-Island Cane Farmers. She shot to national prominence in the 1990s as a controversial talk show host who championed the rights of the vulnerable. Then in 2002, she helped launch the now-defunct political organization, the United People's Party. However, Houghton Cardenas found herself on the wrong side of the law after being accused of misappropriating funds from one of her clients in 2009. That same year, the General Legal Counsel, acting upon a recommendation by its disciplinary committee, struck her from the role of attorneys allowed to do legal work in Jamaica. When her case came before the corporate era court in December 2009, her attorney, Terence Ballantyne, told resident magistrate Judith Pusey that his client was sick and that the warrant was stayed. But when Houghton Cardenas did not show for a mentioned date in another matter in St. Thomas 2 months later, a warrant was issued for her arrest. The stay on the first warrant was also lifted. The disgraced lawyer fled the country and stayed away even during her father's funeral in June 2012. It is still unclear what caused her death on April 28. She was 67. Ratty gunned down in Greater Portmore. The police are probing a gun attack which claimed the life of a man in Greater Portmore, St. Catherine on Tuesday. The deceased is 30-year-old Kevin Burke, otherwise called Ratty. The police say sometime before 4 p.m., Mr. Blake was sitting under a mango tree when he was approached by a man armed with a handgun who shot him. The police were called and Mr. Burke was seen face down in a pool of blood. 3 cartridge casings and a blood sample were recovered as exhibits. Public could have been given prior notice about a pay hike from parliamentarians. John Mafood, president of the Jamaica Manufacturers and Exporters Association, says the government could have given the public prior notice ahead of the announcement of the salary hikes for the political directorate. This, he said, may have helped reduce the initial shock and the subsequent backlash caused by the announcement.
It's not really that there was a salary increase. It was one, the fact that how the salary increase was done, it was not transparent in terms of how it was calculated, and the way it was done in terms of a sudden announcement in Parliament without adequate communication and sensitization to the public that one was coming and how it was going to be done. You know, there seemed to be some insensitivity on the part of the government in terms of the fact that Jamaicans are suffering very badly. And, well, nobody, I think, really expects them to continue without a salary increase. I think it was the way it was done and the insensitivity to the suffering of Jamaicans.
NRSC laments high number of road fatalities. The National Road Safety Council says Jamaica continues to record a high number of road fatalities despite the introduction of the new Road Traffic Act and increased law enforcement. Speaking Tuesday at the National Labor Day project on the P.J. Patterson Highway in St. Catherine, NRSC Vice Chairman Dr. Lucian Jones said along with the environment, this Labor Day project also places focus on road safety and for very good reason. Dr. Jones bemoaned the fact that 161 people have died in road crashes since the start of the year. More than 40 motorcyclists and more than 40 pedestrians died. Some 20 people, including 2 motorcyclists, have died in crashes so far in May.
The news that as of today, 161 precious souls have died on our roads. And I say this to you that in addition to the focus on the environment, this Labor Day project also places a focus on road safety, and for a very good reason. I also read through the news that for this month, 20 people have died, and the news report from the police this morning indicates that 2 motorcyclists have been reported killed. One not far from here who met in a crash on the 10th of May and died on the 17th, and was reported as having died this morning in the police report. Over 40 motorcyclists have died, and over 40 pedestrians have also died.
Process to grant politicians a pay increase akin to abuse of power, says a trade unionist. Trade unionist Helen Davis White says the process to grant the latest increase to the political directorate is akin to an abuse of power. She says the conversion formula used to calculate the salary for public sector workers under the compensation review is different from that of parliamentarians. Mrs. Davis White told the news that no other public sector worker was allowed to go beyond a certain point on the salary scale except parliamentarians.
The decision that was taken is to have that link between the permanent secretary and the cabinet minister being made at the highest point in the scale for the permanent secretary. So in a sense, what that meant is that the cabinet minister would have converted to the new rates of pay at the maximum of the scale, seeing that they were pegged to the maximum of the permanent secretary. And despite the various negotiations that were ongoing, there's no other public sector worker, including the permanent secretaries, that were allowed to convert beyond the 4th point in the scale. The total number of points in all of the scales in this new compensation system is, I think, 13 points. And all public sector workers converted using a conversion formula that allowed them to convert at the 4th point. So some would have converted 1st or 2nd or 3rd or 4th. That is the maximum that was allowed in terms of conversion for public sector workers. This is where we have a real problem in terms of how the parliamentarian was allowed to convert to the new scales. The government could have decided to go ahead and implement any one of the various recommendations that have been made over the years instead of continuing the link between the pay of the permanent secretary and the pay of the cabinet minister. I think as a country we have to decide how it is that we are going to be doing that. Because if we don't decide, every time parliamentarians are to get an increase in pay, we will always have what exactly has turned out in this particular situation. Even just knowing what is the job description of the member of parliament as against the parliamentarian, all of those things need to be known, because we have moved to that point for the public servant. We need now to move to that point for the political directorate, and there must be a system of accountability, something as simple as whether or not you turn up for various committee meetings and so on. Those are things that you have to be able to say that that is a metric that can be used to judge whether or not the parliamentarian is performing satisfactorily or not. Because you can't demand that of the public servant, but nothing being done as regards performance, etc., for the parliamentarian.
Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Select all for daily news updates.